Beta to Boss with Chase Harmer. Growth, scale, success.
It's my pleasure today to interview Vajid Jafris, a serial entrepreneur who has created a massively successful companies in the travel space. A very busy man. It took me almost 2 months to lock him down to have this interview today. But, I'm extremely thankful to and humbled by the opportunity to speak with you and appreciate you coming on the show. What we like to do here at Beta to Boss is look back from the beginning and help point out the issues or hurdles and challenges that you've had to uncover and conquer to become the success that you are in front of me today. And being that you've had numerous companies that were acquired or sold or passed on in some way or another, we don't need to go through all of them, but what I like to do is concentrate on a few of them and discuss why it was a good time for them to be acquired or what motivated you to continue to start and get involved with these new companies and ventures, which ended up changing the game as we know it in the travel space. Very innovative companies. But what I'd like to do first is just start with your background and a little bit about who you are and where you came from, so the audience knows who we're talking to, and a little bit about your background. And
Sure. So I'm actually immigrated from Pakistan in the 70s and went to school here. Actually came here to go to school to Stanford, where I got admission for my graduate work in engineering. And then I decided to stay here because I also got an opportunity to work here and got immigration to stay in the country. And I started my career as an engineer in a company, in a publicly traded company, for a couple of years. And
what was the name of that company?
It was called Envirotech.
Okay.
So Envirotech was a big, because I got my graduate degree in engineering, in environmental engineering.
Okay.
So then one day I was sitting in a cubicle as an engineer, and I saw this entourage of people passing me by, and I said, "Who is this guy?" And they said, "He's the chairman of Envirotech." And I said, I looked at him and I said, "What does this guy have that I don't have?" I traveled halfway across the world and I took a lot of risk.
Yeah.
I went to one of the top universities in this country and graduated from there. So what does it take for him to be running the company and I working for him? So why can't I do this?
Right.
So that gave me the inspiration to go look for an opportunity and to go build a company. And I read a newspaper that day in the Wall Street Journal, and I saw an article that said that travel is a huge industry and nobody has even 1% of it. And back then, American Express used to be the big guy.
When was this? What year was this back then?
This would be about 75.
Oh wow. Okay.
So 1975.
1975. So the travel industry, and you heard about this being a big industry. Nobody has 1%. So.
Right. And I knew nothing about travel, and so I quit my job. I had $2,500 in savings, and I said, I'm going to go start a travel company.
Did you know what you were going to do in travel?
No.
You just knew that it was going to be travel related.
I knew that I was going to become a big player in travel. So I said, I'm going to start this business. And so with that $2,500 savings, I started my first company and hired a manager for $500 a month back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she came in and she said, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "We are going to sell a 24-hour service that nobody else in the industry offers, with an 800 number, which were just starting to come in. Before that, there were no 800 numbers in the United States.
In the 70s?
In the 70s. So 800 numbers were just starting. And I said, the company I worked for, when I traveled, when it was after 5 o'clock, if I had a problem with my hotel or my air, I would call. There were no travel agents because they would close shop. So I said, we'll open up shop 24 hours a day, give an 800 number, so a traveler, no matter where they are, if they have a problem, they can call us.
So this was like a concierge service?
This would be a travel agency with a 24-hour service.
Got you. Okay, travel agency. So what was your main core business as this travel agency? What were you doing?
So I said to my manager that I hired that we are going to go service the corporate business travelers. And she said, nobody touches business traveler because they change their minds frequently. And you have to call every airline, because back then there were no computers.
Got you.
And you have to call every airline to make the change, and nobody wants to do that business.
Right.
And she said, you're crazy if you're going to do that. And why are you going to start a 24-hour service? Because there's nobody here who can do the 24-hour service. Nobody, not even American Express does it.
What was the name of your company?
It was called Tri-World Travel.
Tri-World Travel.
Right.
How long did you end up doing the B2B travel and as a travel agency with Tri-World?
Well, we started in 76, and I sold the company in 83. But the thing was, there were no B2B travel companies.
Right.
So when we started, she said, one, you're going in the wrong direction. That nobody does that. And secondly, she said, it's you and me here. I work from 9 to 5. Who's going to provide the 24-hour service? And so I said, first let me go sell.
Right.
And see if people want this service. And if they do, then we'll figure out how to provide the service.
Right.
But if people don't want the service, then we don't have a problem,
Sure.
Nothing to worry about. So when I went out and approached companies and I said, we have a 24-hour service, they said, we love it, sign us up.
So did you charge a monthly fee for this for the businesses?
No. Back then, the airlines used to pay the commission, the hotels paid commissions. So, every time you sell a ticket or, book a hotel, you would get 10% commission.
Okay.
So that's how you make money. And
So it was based off the total ticket price. So if I paid $100, you'd earn $10.
$10. Yeah.
$10.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. But you were focusing mainly B2B, domestic or international?
Both domestic and international. And the thing was, the field was wide open because nobody would touch that business.
Right.
But I knew from my studies at Stanford that computers were coming and they're going to change many industries.
So how did you know that going to Stanford? Is it just because you guys started in the computers there? Or?
Yeah, no, I went to they used to have a computer lab back then, and it was all punch cards, and so it was a separate little building. It was called the computer lab.
Okay.
And they had an IBM mainframe sitting there where you'd go run your program, you'd punch your cards and then give it to them, and they would run the program for you, and you come back and pick up your program.
Sure.
So then I had heard that, they're in the travel industry that, IBM was building this computer system for American Airlines called Sabre System. So I saw that if that came in, it would transform the industry.
And it did. It did, apparently.
It did. But first, the lesson that I learned, because I was getting into this industry of which I knew nothing, was that first I had committed to go do a service that didn't exist, which was a big opportunity. But then I had made a commitment for which I didn't have the resources because I didn't have somebody to work 24 hours a day. So then I became the 24-hour agent.
Well, someone has to do the agency, right? So if you're selling the product, someone's got to fulfill the product.
Yeah. So I became the 24-hour agent, and at night the calls would come in at midnight, 1 o'clock from all over the country.
So there's no cell phones back then. So did you just sit by the bed and just answer the phone all day?
Yes. I had to.
Awesome.
You couldn't actually move the phone from the office to the house.
Right.
So then we created a technology that we could forward the call from the office to the house.
Ooh. So you created the forwarding technology.
Yes.
Was that another business venture?
No, it was just, we needed to solve a problem, so we created the solution.
It's amazing.
And so at night the call would come in, and I would be Jeff, the travel agent. So I would answer the phone, and they say, "Oh, Jeff, you are fantastic. You're good service." And I learned the business. And during the day, I was Mr. Jafri, the president of the company.
Right. So and then Jeff was an employee that answered the phones later.
Right.
That's great. That's great.
And so, but I cut my teeth by doing the frontline business, learning the business, because I didn't know the business.
Right.
So I learned it as I was serving the customer. I wanted to make sure they get fantastic service. And we grew the company. And at that time, there were 18,000 travel agencies.
In the United States?
In the United States. And within 4 years, we were the number 10 out of those 18,000 travel agencies.
Wow. Just focusing on that business sector.
Yeah.
Once you started carving out a path in that B2B sector, were the people that followed you into that sector?
Yeah, ultimately, today that is the most lucrative sector, and everybody goes after that. And American Express, Carlson Wagonly, they're all focused on that sector. But we pioneered that sector.
Do you think it's just because the B2B are spending more money on tickets, or is it what's the
B2B,
traction?
absolutely. If you look at the business, half the business is business to business travel. You know, the B2B travel, which is the corporate business travel.
Sure.
Half the business is leisure travel. But the business traveler ticket is about 3 times more valuable to the airline than the leisure traveler. They make all their money on the business traveler.
Is it because they tend to fly first class more?
They travel first class, they have no restriction, they buy the highest priced tickets, but they sit on the same seat where, you know, the leisure traveler who bought 3 months ahead of time paid $300 for it. The business traveler paid $1,000 for it.
Because he had to get it last minute, and he was paying first class.
Yeah.
And
usually it's the travel that you book within a week.
at that time, you starting this company, how old were you at that time?
I was about 26, 27.
26 years old. So 26-year-old going after this business, you said, hey, listen, let me figure out this business, and if I can sell it, then we'll support it. And then
Yes.
then your lady said, hey, listen, I only want to work 8 to 5, so you're the 24-hour support. Took TriWorld, and you started it in 76, and you sold it in 83?
Right.
So you sold it to a competitor of yours at that time, or what?
No, actually an insurance company came in.
Wow,
And
okay.
they said, you know, business to business travel, they travel a lot, and they, you know, we should buy insurance. In fact, there was a big company called Mutual of Omaha.
Uh-huh. I
They
remember
used to
yeah.
have insurance boxes at the airports where you could buy an insurance and drop it in the box, you know. And so the insurance company said, you know, this is the customer that we want, and you have the customers, so we'll buy the company and we'll sell insurance to them.
Got you. So because you had the existing database of all these travelers.
Right. I had all the customer base, you know, all over the country because we had offices all over the country.
So you started this as a 2-person operation. When you ended the operation, when you sold it to this insurance company, how many employees did you have?
We had about a couple of hundred employees.
Wow. And you were how many states you were in?
We were, I think, in 10 states.
That's amazing. So you started it with $2,500.
Right.
You with 2 people. You're working the landlines 24/7, selling these B2B packages. When you ended up exiting the business, what was the valuation of the company? Well,
Yeah, we were, as I said, we were the number 10 company, and we were focused on corporate travel. So our business was all corporate travel, and so the insurance company, you know, paid me well, and we made good money on that. I made good because I was the sole shareholder.
So you're an environmental engineer, right? So
Yes.
you're not a sales guy, but you became a sales guy, essentially, right? Because you.
I think we are all sales guys.
Well, of course we are, right? But you're an engineer, so now we'll get into your companies that you have now, but obviously it's a lot more development driven, and I think probably a lot of those skills that you have back then, the engineering skills, come into play more now. But back then it was a lot more salesy. It's more sales related than it was engineering. Is that true, or?
Well, you know, it is a combination of everything because engineering teaches you how to think logically.
Okay.
You know, how do you put pieces together and make them work together? So that's the engineering part.
Sure.
So then there is the sales part, which is how do I connect with the customer? What is the need in the marketplace? You know, how do I understand the customer's requirements, needs, and how I build products to satisfy those needs?
Do you think that the engineering background helped you scale and develop this business to what it was or what it became? Because you have this methodical mind that was focused on building this big plan. Did you have the vision of building this huge company when you started it at 26 with $2,500?
Well, I said that, you know, if American Express is there, they don't even have 1%, we can build a pretty sizable company, a big company.
Sure.
So, you know, it became like a challenge, a passion. You know, it's something that drives you. You say, you know, anybody, it's like the guy who I looked at who was the chairman of Envirotech.
Right.
So I said, you know, what does he have that I don't have? So why am I working for somebody?
Absolutely.
So I can do anything I want, and which I did.
So Envirotech, was that your first actual like employee job?
No, that was my only employee job.
Right. And then after that, you were just an entrepreneur
Yeah.
forever. But once you start working for yourself, it's hard to, you can't really turn back and go to work for
Right,
somebody
right.
else. So after this, did you then start, because there's four of the companies that we have here on the docket that I'd like to discuss, and Seafarers was one of those. Did you transition into Seafarers from there, or what was your next move after
Well,
trying?
in between, there were several other companies that I built, but
Sure.
but Seafarers was
Were they
and
all, were they all, not to interrupt you, but were they all successful, the ones in between, or?
they were all successful. I haven't put a company in bankruptcy, so knock on wood. I'm fortunate in that. But I specialized in technology in the travel space.
Gotcha.
So for me, the transformation of the travel industry, which is an information-based industry, because it really doesn't have any tangible product to sell. It sells information. So when you call a travel agent or you go to Expedia or Priceline, you're collecting information. They don't have planes, they don't have hotels that they can accommodate you in.
Sure.
So these are information brokers. So as a travel agent, to me, anytime there was going to be a change in technology, there was going to be an opportunity to build a travel company.
Gotcha.
So when the PCs came along, I built a company. Then we had a company when the networks started to develop, private networks. Then I developed built a company. Then when the graphical interface came along,
Graphical interface. What do you mean by
the
that?
graphical user, like what Apple uses, because before Apple, people had to learn the code of how to run a computer program. But Apple made it for the common person. Anybody can use a computer because it has a graphical user interface.
Right. Okay.
So the computer became more human.
Sure.
So with that, you could then build a company in travel so that humans could process information themselves.
Okay.
And then along the way, I got a patent. When the internet came along, I got the patent for the first internet booking engine.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, obviously you patented it, so you had this idea about developing a booking engine. Was this similar to what you would see on like a booking engine today?
Yes. In fact, they are off the patent that I built. The thing that I didn't do is, which I learned later, that I have to renew my patent every 2 years, because if I don't, then anybody can use it.
I thought it was 7 years.
No, it's 2 years.
But you get it, doesn't, when you issue a patent,
The
isn't it
patent is
7
for
years?
17 years.
17?
Yes,
So you can have an exclusive right for 17.
for 17 years.
But you have to renew it every 2
2
years,
It's a small fee that you pay.
like $100 or something.
Right.
But you forgot to pay it.
I didn't pay that.
Oh man, that's a bad one, because that's worth like,
But
incredible opportunity.
It is good in the sense that I think it is good for the consumer.
Because
That-
you would have owned the market.
Right. It is good for the consumer. It's like Fleming's penicillin. That it's good, because I wanted to see the information getting down to the consumer level, where they could interact with it and use it. If somebody else had the patent, who knows what they would have done with it? Try to corner the market or make it more expensive.
Right.
But I wanted to do it because, to me, it was important for the information to flow down to the consumer level.
Everything that you've done, in my eyes, from everything that I've seen, is really consumer driven. You really want the consumer to save money. You want the consumer to have more options, have a more seamless experience. And obviously now you've developed a system with artificial intelligence, which obviously even further enhances that experience for the consumer. So that's amazing, and that's a great story. But going back to the patent, what made you decide that it was a great idea to patent the booking engine at that time? Because how old were you at that time when you developed
But
that
this
patent?
was in '94. This is just when the internet started to come around, the networks were starting to build. So the patent was that the information that used to reside at the airlines.
Yeah.
And then when I started my TriWorld, we were able to take the information down from the airline to the travel agents level,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can then become the broker of information.
Okay.
the next step in that evolution of that industry was that ultimately, because the travel agent, the information that they process is very complicated. Ordinary human beings cannot interface with that information because it's all cryptic, it's all command driven, and travel agents have to learn how to drive those commands.
Okay.
So then I said, as the graphical user interface was coming of age, I said, if you take all that information that the travel agent has and you put a graphical interface to it, then ordinary people can use it.
And the consumer has the ability to go in there and book their own tickets.
To book their own ticket. And so that to me was obvious because I saw that whole, the movement downstream of information flowing downstream to the consumer level. So that's when I filed the patent.
That's incredible. What was it called? What was the booking engine called?
It was at that time I just booked. I filed the patent under my own name.
Sure.
But at that time, the company that I was with was a company called DocuNet.
DocuNet.
Yes.
Okay, and so DocuNet was after Seafarers, right, or was it before?
It was before Seafarers.
Okay, so DocuNet, and from what I read, you've developed an ATM that had the ability to do have the airline data and paperwork and things of that nature.
The DocuNet machine was, and we actually partnered with Citibank and EDS and Ticketmaster, so that the ATM machines, because that there were ATMs that were delivering
so those
cash.
regular ATMs.
The regular. So in those ATMs, you could also get your Ticketmaster tickets.
Okay.
And you could also get your airline tickets from that same machine.
So did you guys cooperate and actually build it together, or was it your idea?
No, it was my idea, but we teamed up with Diebold, with the manufacturer of ATM machines, NCR, who built machines, AlwaysEvolving out of Europe. So they became investors. AlwaysEvolving became an investor in DocuNet. EDS became an investor in
Did
DocuNet.
you go out to them specifically and say, hey, listen, I have this great idea and I think we should partner together?
Yes. And they loved the idea and they said, can we become an investor? And so they invested in the company.
What was that like? At that time, you basically had the first business and you transitioned to the DocuNet business. You're still relatively young at that point, right? In your early 30s, late 20s.
You're always young. As an entrepreneur, you never age.
Well, that's right. I think one of the things as an entrepreneur is a lot of people are scared and timid. You never really had, it doesn't sound like you ever had an experience where you ever held yourself back or thought about holding back. You always just kind of went for it. Is that true? Or?
Absolutely. As an entrepreneur, you have to have that belief that you cannot fail. You will find a way around things, but you cannot fail.
Do you have
as somebody once said to me, that you really never fail. You either win or you learn.
That's true. Did you ever have any experiences, because it sounds like you have the golden touch, and did you ever have an experience where it didn't work out exactly the way that you thought it would?
Actually, that happens all the time. Plans never work out the way you plan it, but you have to learn how to adjust and look at it as an opportunity that probably is more than what you had planned for.
Sure.
And not say that, I was going this way, but this way is bad and it's bad for me. You say, no, this may be a better way for me.
Right. And so you just kind of roll with the punches and move forward along with whatever direction that takes you.
Yes.
Okay. So you've had these 4 different companies. Well, you've had a lot of different companies. You've also served...
This is my 8th company.
Your 8th company, Envoya. So, you went from DocuNet to Seafarers to... there's other companies in between.
Yes.
And then Mondi. Let's talk a little bit about Mondi, because Mondi, you built Mondi, and then you partnered with another company called Exploratrip, and you guys merged. You want to talk a little bit about Mondi? What problem was Mondi solving in the market? So
Mondi was created because I saw an opportunity. When the whole world was going online, I had Metasearch, which is Seafair, the company that I had built, And
And what do you mean by Metasearch? Just so people understand what you're...
Metasearch Kayak is a Metasearch. So
Okay.
Metasearch is not a travel agency.
Sure.
They collect content from all the suppliers in the industry,
Okay.
so that you don't have to go search different sites. They search the sites for you and bring it in one place.
How is that different from like a Priceline or something like that?
So Kayak, Metasearch would go search Priceline, Expedia, Travelocity, Orbitz, American Airlines, Delta, United. So they'll go search 100 sites
Sure. Okay.
and bring the results back so that you don't have to go search the 100 sites.
Okay.
So it does the searching for you.
Uh-huh.
And then when you are ready, and then after you see the results from all these sites, you say, oh, the best deal is at Expedia.
Right.
So then you click on the button and they send you to Expedia to buy from there.
And Expedia just has Expedia fares?
Only Expedia content.
And these are fares that they negotiated directly with these vendors?
With the airlines, and yes.
Okay.
So Expedia may have different fares, Priceline may have different fares, Orbitz may have different fares. So every travel agency may have slightly different content.
So if you're comparing the two, just based upon your explanation, it would seem like the Metasearch would be better. You'd have maybe better value than Expedia would be.
Yes, but it's different value because Metasearch only searches. They don't do the booking. So for the booking, you have to go to an Expedia or a Priceline or
Gotcha.
American Airlines or Delta.
Okay.
Metasearch just gives you information. So
Right.
it
Okay.
collects information for you.
Okay. Now I interrupted you and talked about the Metasearch, but you were talking about Mondi and.
So when I was running Seafares, which was one of the first Metasearch, that time, there was a lot of, I knew that there were a lot of fares
Sure.
that could not be made available online because they were in paper forms. They were paper contracts. And there are 11 companies that control that whole international fare market in North America, Canada and US. And they have these fares that are in binders, in paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, if we can take those paper contracts and digitize them, and then we can bring it online, we would open up a whole new value for the consumer.
Okay.
So we went out and bought 5 of these top companies. Out of these 11, we bought the 5 top companies.
And so, just so everyone understands, so you have these Metasearch companies, you have the Priceline type companies, which are the travel agencies, and then you have companies like this, which are ultimately like the wholesale companies.
They are wholesale companies. They are called airline ticket consolidators.
Okay.
And they have the best deals in the market.
So the Pricelines and those guys buy from these guys.
They can't buy from them because the content that they have, the fares they have, are all in binders.
Got you.
Whereas Priceline is all digital content.
Okay. Okay.
But this is not digital content. This is all, paper contracts.
Gotcha.
So nobody had taken on the challenge because these are very complex contracts. And how do you take these contracts and convert them into digital content and then be able to serve it?
Okay.
So that was the challenge, and that is when I had this idea of going out and buying Explore Trip, which had a technology, so a technology company, and going out and buying the top 5 of these 11 consolidators that would give us a global geographical coverage for every airline, because they have 1,000 airlines under contract, and they have every country covered for fares, for the lowest fare.
Between all 5 of those companies.
Between
that
all
you
5
observed.
of those companies.
So now, those 5 companies that you bought makes Mondi the biggest wholesaler
In the world.
Yes. And there's only 4 or 5 left that are
There's
competing
about
against
4, about 4, but they're all less than half our size.
you? Okay.
So we bought the technology company. We went and we raised $200 million to put all this thing together and built Mondi, because they were all companies that were competing with one another.
Sure.
And we brought them under one tent and put them together and created the synergies between them, brought the technology, and that is what is Mondi today. And it is a very successful, very profitable, and a very fast-growing company.
Right. No, and I couldn't agree more. And and obviously, but it was so successful and doing so well. But you with your being, you're always looking towards the future and what could possibly happen next. You essentially looked at starting another company called Envoya, which you're operating now today. What does Envoya do that is so special and makes it different, but ultimately made you abandon this, or not abandon, but made you leave and pursue Envoya full time when you had such a successful company already going on and working?
No, I'm the chairman of Mondi also, but the entrepreneur in me, as I said, entrepreneurs never give up. And,
sure.
And they never get old because you have these fresh ideas so it's the freedom of going out and creating something when you see an opportunity.
Sure.
So to me, the opportunity came because there are three things that happened in the marketplace. One is that the airlines agreed to a new standard that would allow all their content, which is not available today at Expedia or Priceline. For example, if you want to get a boarding pass or you want to get a seat assignment, you cannot do it at Expedia or Priceline. You have to go to the airline site. They have, in the new standard, they have agreed to put everything that's at their website, they put it in the new pipe, in the new standard. The second is that artificial intelligence. You hear about driverless cars,
right?
Because the driver is now technology, which works all day long. I mean, it can drive you forever. It will won't make as many mistakes. It will learn from its mistakes.
Sure.
Unbelievable technology that's going to transform many, many industries.
Which is the artificial intelligence.
Which is the artificial intelligence.
Uh-huh.
And if you had lived in the past, you could appreciate what a great travel agent can do for you. A really good travel agent, the kind of service they can provide you, they would do everything for you without you having to go sort through 10 different websites and trying to find the lowest fare, and where they would do everything for you.
Sure.
So it was like people who had that kind of service can appreciate how much value that service is. So it's like having a chauffeur who can drive your car so you don't have to drive it.
Sure.
That's essentially what AI does, artificial intelligence, driverless car does for you. Similarly, our idea is that artificial intelligence can become your travel agent that you can only dream of, would do everything for you. The third technology that is going to, in my mind...
And just to touch on that before you skip on to the next... So it would do everything for you. Can you kind of be like from start to finish, search all the things, know your preferences? What is this artificial intelligence really doing for the consumer?
It would know, when you're traveling, what kind of flights you like, which airlines you like to fly on, what your kind of budget you spend. Do you sit in the front of the plane? Do you fly... What kind of seat do you like, window or aisle? Within the window or aisle, do you like to sit in the middle of the plane, at the back of the plane, in the front of the plane? Do you like to get boarded first because you have bags that you want? Do you carry bags? How much,
Right.
Bags would cost? Do you have frequent flyer miles? How many frequent flyer miles you have with different airlines? And can you use the miles for your flight, or should you use the miles for your flight?
Wow.
Or should you move to a different airline because you can get a higher status there? All those things it would be able to do for you.
And all those things are programmed into the Envoya experience.
Yes.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And I cut you off there. You were going to say
and
number
the
three.
third technology is the technology of voice.
Mm-hmm.
Because, usually, you don't want to sit and start typing and putting in stuff. So you should be able to talk to this thing like Siri or Alexa, and you have a conversation with this and say, I'd like to go to New York and I need a hotel, and then you don't have to tell it that Marriott, it knows that you like to stay at the Marriott, these are how many miles you have or points you have with Marriott, this is the kind of room you like. It will do everything for you.
So you can talk to the computer now on Envoya?
Yes, you have the ability to talk to the Envoya agent. It's called Mary.
Mary?
Yeah.
What does Mary sound like?
Mary sounds, like a fantastic travel agent.
That's amazing. It's so amazing. I mean, and there's nothing out there like this right now.
No.
So you are so far ahead of the curve. I mean, adaptability, right? So because this is new, right? And you know what? You've always been on the cutting edge, right? So I think one of the things is that when you're on the cutting edge of technology all the time, and I'll give an example. So in our business, in my business, we're in the fraud prevention and the processing business. But in the fraud prevention business, 10 years ago, you try to have a conversation with somebody about preventing fraud, nobody wants to talk to you because no one has a problem with fraud. But today, everyone's receptive to it, right? So 10 years ago was tougher. You would have been on the cutting edge in fraud business, but 10 years ago, right? But you guys have always been on the cutting edge, but always been very successful. So what do you attribute that to? I mean, so where do you think Envoy sits at this point with the consumers being ready for it and wanting to book travel this way?
Well, the consumers, if you look report after report, from Google, from Expedia, they'll tell you that a consumer visits anywhere from 10 to 24 sites before they buy a ticket. And how frustrating of an experience would that be? How much of your time is spent in doing research and searching to get that confidence that you're getting, and that's just to buy a ticket, let alone, managing frequent flyer miles, let alone, getting the boarding passes, let alone booking a hotel, which hotel, at what price, at what location. It's a very time-consuming and frustrating experience.
Sure.
And that's why I refer to you that when you had a fantastic travel agent,
right?
You would pick up the phone and you say, I need to go to New York tomorrow. I need to be there at a meeting by 4 o'clock. I need a hotel, and the meeting is in Midtown, and I need a flight back on 2 days later. I need to be back here for my meeting here. You don't have to tell which airline. You don't have to tell which hotel. You don't have to tell what seat. They would say, okay, get back to you. You would have your whole itinerary put together.
Do you have any plans to maybe do some sort of co-op with that, where if I'm getting dressed and I could just talk to Alexa and it somehow communicates to Envoya? Is that somehow in the plan, or something?
It would be. It would be. I think the ultimate goal is to make the consumer's life easy. To not create separate silos that the consumer has to deal with this Alexa over here and need Mary here and Siri over here and another one over there for.
Siri and Mary get jealous of each other.
So yes, we are more of consumer-centric. We want to do everything to make the consumer's life easy.
Yeah.
And success and money and all that follows if you have happy customers.
Sure. No, that's 100% correct. Being that you're constantly starting these new endeavors, you always map it out. I would imagine you always have a map of where you're going, a business plan, if you will. Do you find that you are always sticking to that business plan, or does it constantly change and evolve when you start a company and grow the company?
It never stays the same.
Right.
It is always evolving.
Mm-hmm.
You know the destination, but you don't know the route.
Right.
You don't know.
Because you haven't been there yet.
Yes. So you have your eye, I'm going to get to that point. I'm going to get to the top of that mountain. But which road am I going to go on? You don't know.
Right.
So you keep your eye on the ball in that this is my destination. Whatever comes in my way, I will try to chart the shortest, fastest, easiest route. But if I will have obstacles in the way, and then I need to decide, do I have to go over them or around them?
How do you decide if you go over or around? Is there a certain compass internally that you use to do that?
It kind of an instinct that you build over time. And the second, and I think a very important part of it, is to have good mentors. I was very fortunate early on, even in my first company.
Sure.
I had a great guy, his name was Sir Freddie Laker, and he was, knighted by the Queen as the greatest entrepreneur England ever produced.
Oh, wow. That was your mentor?
He was my mentor, and he was also Richard Branson's mentor when he started Virgin Atlantic Airlines.
Oh, wow.
So he was an airline guy, and he started the whole discount airline globally.
How did you guys intertwine and meet?
It was through a mutual friend, and we just connected immediately. He came to visit me, and we connected, and we became the best of friends until the day he died. I mean, we were very, very close.
That's great.
But he was a great mentor.
What was the best piece of advice that he ever gave to you?
He just said, keep your eye on the ball. That was the best piece of advice. Don't get distracted because other things will come, opportunities, so don't start chasing everything. When you have a mission, stay on the mission.
How do you stay focused? What do you do to help yourself stay focused instead of chasing these other opportunities?
It is a discipline that you develop, because it's like anything else. You develop this mental state. Because when I started out, I would say, there's another opportunity, I should go do that, and I'll do this and this and this, and I can handle 4 things at a time.
Sure.
No, you really can only handle one.
One well, really
one well, yes.
Exactly. So, you're growing these companies, and these are not small companies. You're growing very, very large companies. So how do you set your goals and your milestones, and how do you do that daily, monthly, quarterly? I mean, how do you set your goals and obviously keep yourself on track? What do you do?
Well, you set a yearly goal.
A yearly goal. So you do it annually?
Yeah, you said, this year we're going to do, but within the year you break it down by month. Okay, so I am going to, it's like a budget. You put a budget together and you say, this is my monthly budget.
Uh-huh.
And then you have weekly meetings to make sure that we set goals weekly. So it's weekly, monthly, yearly. But the year is something that the team has to say, okay, this year we're going to do this, but this month we're going to do this, and this week we're going to do this.
Right.
So you have small, tactical things that you do weekly, but the yearly goal is more of a strategic goal of this is how we're going to get this thing accomplished this year.
Right. So in all of your companies, because you have this mindset, and I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that they just want to be successful. I think everyone has their own definition of success. Do you have a definition of success that's in your mind?
I'm a very customer-driven guy.
Uh-huh.
To me, the greatest joy is to have my customers be surprised and delighted by what I deliver to them.
Sure.
And everything else follows that. If I can do that, to me, that is success.
100%.
So I tell my whole team, we build products, we do services, whatever we do, our center of our focus of our whole business, the center of our universe is the customer.
Right.
We listen to the customer, see what they want, and if we can make them happy, success will follow us.
So for you, it's customer service, and it's really customer service driven. It sounds like is that correct?
Absolutely. I listen to the customers. I want to hear what they're saying. I want to get as much from my customers because I have to build the products and services around their needs.
Sure. So do you see that your companies, as you grow them over time, are you more heavily focused on the customer service? Because as a travel company in today's age, you have developers, you have your engineers, you have all these different departments. Do you find that your customer service is your biggest department that you have at these companies, or is it?
No, it's not just customer service. It's also building the products for the customer.
Sure.
It's like, okay, if I'm going to build Mary, I can have a voice interface, but that's not good enough. Mary needs to connect with the customer.
Right.
Mary needs to be able to understand the customer.
Sure.
I need to, if it takes customer a half hour to make a booking, how can I make it in 5 minutes? What can I do for the customer?
Right.
Then you build products around making the customer happy.
So that's kind of the key for you, is that you just want to continue to make the consumer happy, and that ultimately is driving the business, and it drives you personally to be fulfilled as a business owner.
Right, and keep in mind, I'm a customer too, because I feel these frustrations, people,
sure.
So I can relate to it, and I want to solve those problems.
Well, let me switch it up a little bit, and I think this is something that a lot of people would like to know about, and it's not necessarily about specifically on Voya or Amani, but you ultimately are a business owner that's been able to go out and been able to get VC money. You've been able to get other investors as well. What do you think the key is?
Well, I know a lot of VCs. I've worked with. In almost all of my companies, I've raised money. I've brought in investors.
Sure.
And I think the one quality they look for is, that are you passionate? Do you really believe in what you're doing?
Right.
Do you have the tenacity to to go through tough times, that because times will be tough. Do you have the perseverance to face the tough times and not give up?
Sure.
Do you have the smarts to figure out ways around obstacles when they come? Do you truly understand the nature of the business, and because they will grill you on all those things,
sure,
in different ways, and you have to be able to stand up to that kind of scrutiny.
Right.
And if you do, then they say this is the right person to bet on.
Because they're betting on you too, not just the idea. They're betting on you.
The idea. In fact, there's an old mantra in the valley that the VCs are looking for 5 things in a company. Number 1 is management. Number 2 is management. Number 3 is management. Number 4 is the size of the market, and number 5 is the product.
So the first 3 is basically who you're bringing on with you to start the company.
Who are you? Who good are you? Because almost in every business, when you start a business, it will never end up being that exact same business. It will go through evolutionary processes of, the product will change, the market will change, a lot will change, but the management will know how to navigate through that.
Sure. And so that makes a lot of sense. So you think that's the key? You've always had a very strong management team. And so with my last company, that was the first time that I ever developed a board. And how important do you think a board of directors is?
At the appropriate time. I don't think you should put a board together right out of the gate, because every person you'll bring on board will have their own view and vision of the world.
Sure.
And will try to steer you towards that.
Uh-huh.
I think initially you should start out with your own 2 or 3 team members and go and put the initial plan and product together and go test it out and have some proof points of success.
Right.
Of some customer validation and maybe revenue, maybe not revenue. That's not important, but it is that there are people who say, I love this idea, I love this product, I love this service. If you can do that, then you will attract the right kind of people.
Right.
But just to put a board together for the sake of board, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. One of the things that I experienced with the board is that you don't realize, when you have a company and you have all these people and you try to make strategic decisions later, you have to have the board sign off on a lot of that stuff. So that's the one downside to the board.
And the board, when you pick a board, you need to pick a board first who are fully aligned with you. They believe in you, they believe in your idea, they believe in your mission, and they can help you. They bring something to the party.
Right.
Not just sit and pontificate and tell you, do this and don't do that. You need people who have built companies, who have done stuff, and they can be instrumental in your success.
Right. So what do you think the biggest challenge that you've had in business, and all the businesses that you've had, and it could be just one experience, but what do you think the biggest challenge that you've ever had in business that stands out the most in your mind, and how did you overcome that obstacle or that hurdle to get onto the other side?
Well, there are lots and lots of...
Is there one in particular that stands out maybe more than others? No?
I'll tell you one thing, which is probably, and this is where a lot of people don't understand, but there is a force beyond your comprehension. So one time I had a call, I had never missed a payroll.
Uh-huh.
And one time I had a situation where, in the travel business, you have to pay the airlines every week.
Sure.
Do a settlement with them for all the tickets. So there was a time that I had a big payment and a big payroll coming the next day, and I needed $90,000.
For the payroll, or?
For the airline.
Okay.
And then there was payroll, but I needed $90,000.
Uh-huh.
And I ran out of all resources. I had no way of making it. I had no way. And then I went on my knees and I prayed like hell all night long. The next day, a guy walks into my office and says that, I'm interested in putting money in your company. And I said, how much? He said, $90,000.
Oh, man. That's crazy.
It was unbelievable. So, but I tell you, because, I was telling you of my mentor, Freddie Laker.
Yeah.
He gave me this lesson. He said, you'll do your best, but luck has to play a part in this.
100%.
Call it luck, call it, providence, whatever. But true entrepreneurs will see that kind of things happen to them.
But you know what? I think if you really work hard and you put yourself in those situations, luck happens, right?
Yes.
It's not really luck, because you put yourself out there and you've been doing this and working hard, and that sounds pretty miraculous, though, that story.
It was miraculous. To me, it was, unbelievable. But those kind of things do happen. And it has happened to me since then, other times too.
Yeah.
There are things that come together
Different
just
ways.
at the right time.
Sure.
And it's because, you have the right intent and you're driven by the right mission.
Right.
That, things get aligned for you.
That's amazing. We talked about the mentors. Who was the biggest influencer in your life?
In my business life, it would have to be my mentor, Sir Freddie Laker.
Okay. Looking back now, you know that you're in your 60s. What would you tell your 30-year-old self at this time?
Find a good mentor. Find a mentor who you would like to be like.
Well, Jafri, I sincerely appreciate all your time today. It's been a pleasure. Obviously, we do business together, so I look forward to our relationship as well. But I sincerely appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to share your words of wisdom with the entrepreneurs that listen to the podcast. Is there any final words that you'd like to say?
Well, thank you. Good luck to all the entrepreneurs. I think they have a lot of good things coming their way if they persist and if they're passionate about what they're doing.
Thank you so much, Jafri.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Beta to Boss podcast. For resources or to leave feedback, visit www.betatoboss.com or www.paycertified.com. If you haven't yet, you can subscribe on iTunes so you don't miss any future episodes. Remember to dream big and act on your dreams.